Imagine holding a small stone in your hand. It feels solid, ordinary, and quiet. It does not glow, it does not hum, and it does not seem to contain any visible force. To your senses, it is simply a piece of matter, something with weight, shape, and texture. For most of human history, this is exactly how people understood the world. Matter was matter, and energy was energy. A rock was a rock, and a beam of sunlight was something entirely different. They belonged to separate categories of reality, like two strangers who never met. But the equation equals 2 quietly dissolves that separation. It tells us that mass and energy are not strangers at all, they are the same substance, wearing different costumes. Mass is simply energy that has slowed down enough to take shape. Energy is mass that has been released from its form. They are two faces of the same cosmic coin. To understand this idea, we must step away from the everyday world and imagine what matter truly is. When you look at a piece of metal or a drop of water, you might think of it as a solid, unchanging thing. But at the microscopic level, it is not solid at all. It is a restless, dancing collection of atoms. Each atom is mostly empty space, with tiny particles moving at incredible speeds. And those particles themselves are not little billiard balls. They are bundles of energy held together by invisible forces. So the mass you feel in your hand is not a rigid object, it is energy trapped in a stable form. Think of it like a tightly wound spring. The spring appears calm and motionless, but it stores energy in its coiled shape. If you release it, that stored energy becomes motion. The spring did not suddenly gain energy, it already had it. It was simply hidden. Mass is like that spring, but on a cosmic scale. It is energy that has been wound up so tightly that it forms particles and objects. The equation equals 2 is the rule that tells us exactly how much energy is stored in that mass. Now, here is the astonishing part. The number 2 is enormous. The speed of light, c, is about 300,000,000 meters per second. When you square that number, you get a value so large that it defies everyday intuition. This means that even a tiny amount of mass contains an unimaginable amount of energy. A paperclip, for example, seems harmless, but if all of its mass could be converted into energy, it would release an explosion comparable to a large bomb. The paperclip does not look dangerous, yet it hides a tremendous reservoir of energy within its structure. This realization changes how we think about reality. Matter is no longer something fundamentally different from energy. Instead, matter is energy that has taken on a stable, visible form. It is energy at rest. You can imagine energy as a great ocean. In some places, the water flows freely as waves and currents. In other places, the water freezes into icebergs. The iceberg looks solid and separate, but it is still made of the same water. If it melts, it returns to the ocean. In the same way, mass is like the iceberg, a frozen form of energy. This idea also explains why mass can disappear in certain reactions. When two particles collide and vanish, it might seem as though matter has been destroyed, but according to E equals mc², nothing is truly lost. The mass has simply transformed back into energy, perhaps as light, heat, or radiation. Nature does not create or destroy the essence of things, it only changes their form. This insight was revolutionary because it unified two great concepts that had always been treated separately. Before this equation, mass was seen as a measure of how much stuff something contained, while energy was seen as the ability to do work or cause motion. They were taught in different chapters of physics books, as if they belonged to different worlds, but E equals mc², revealed that there is only one fundamental currency in the universe, energy. Mass is just one of its many expressions. The stars themselves are living proof of this truth. Inside the sun, atoms are constantly merging together. In this process, a tiny bit of mass disappears, but it does not vanish into nothingness. It transforms into light and heat, which travel across space and warm our planet. Every sunrise you witness is a reminder that mass and energy are the same thing. So the next time you pick up a stone, hold a cup of water, or even look at your own hand, remember this. What appears to be solid matter is actually energy in disguise. The world around you is not made of separate substances, but of a single elegant essence, energy, taking form, shape, and structure. And in that realization, the universe becomes not a collection of objects, but a grand, flowing symphony of energy, endlessly transforming, yet never truly lost. When we look at the famous equation E equals mc², it is easy to focus on the symbols E and m. Energy and mass are familiar ideas, but the true mystery of the equation lies in the quiet symbol at the end. 2, that small letter representing the speed of light, is the key that unlocks the hidden power of the universe. To understand this, imagine a simple exchange between two currencies. Suppose you travel from one country to another and you exchange your money at a bank. The amount you receive depends on the exchange rate. If the rate is small, your money does not change much. But if the rate is enormous, even a small amount of currency can become a fortune. In the equation E equals mc², the speed of light squared is that exchange rate. It is the number that tells us how much energy is hidden inside a given amount of mass. Now, let us look at the value of this number. The speed of light, c, is about 300 million meters per second. This is not just fast. It is the ultimate speed limit of the universe. Nothing with mass can reach or exceed it. It is the maximum speed at which information, energy, or influence can travel. But the equation does not use c alone. It uses to the speed of light multiplied by itself. When you square 300 million, you get a number so large that it becomes difficult to imagine. 2 equals 900,000,000,000,000,000,000,000,000,000. That is 90 quadrillion. This enormous value is what transforms the equation from an interesting idea into a cosmic revelation. It means that a very small amount of mass contains a tremendous amount of energy. Let us take a simple example. Imagine just 1 gram of matter, the mass of a small paperclip. According to the equation, if that 1 gram could be completely converted into energy, it would release enough power to equal a massive explosion. The energy hidden in that tiny piece of matter is far greater than anything you would expect by simply holding it in your hand. Why is the number so large? Why does nature use the speed of light as the conversion factor between mass and energy? The answer lies in the structure of space-time itself. In the theory of relativity, the speed of light is not just the speed of a particular phenomenon. It is a fundamental property of the universe. It links space and time together into a single fabric. It sets the ultimate scale for how motion, energy, and matter behave. You can think of c as a kind of cosmic measuring stick. It tells us how space and time relate to each other, and therefore how mass and energy must be connected. When mass is converted into energy, it is not a simple transformation like melting ice into water. It is a transformation governed by the deepest rules of space-time. The speed of light squared is the number that ensures the balance between these two forms of existence. Another way to imagine this is to think of mass as energy that is standing still. When that energy is released, it does not just drift away slowly. It moves at the fastest speed possible, the speed of light. Because it moves so fast, the amount of energy involved must be extremely large to match the mass it came from. It is as if nature is saying, if energy is to take the form of matter, it must be slowed down and concentrated, and if matter is to become energy again, it must be released with extraordinary intensity. The speed of light is the boundary between these two states. This is why nuclear reactions are so powerful. In a chemical reaction, such as burning wood or gasoline, the atoms rearrange themselves, but their total mass remains almost the same. The energy released is relatively small. In a nuclear reaction, however, a tiny portion of the mass actually disappears. It is converted directly into energy, according to E equals mc², because the conversion factor 2 is so large, even a small loss of mass produces a huge amount of energy. This principle powers the sun. Deep in its core, hydrogen atoms fuse together to form helium. In the process, a small amount of mass is lost. That lost mass becomes the sunlight that reaches Earth, warms our oceans, and makes life possible. Every beam of sunlight is a reminder of the enormous energy hidden inside matter. So the speed of light in the equation is not an accidental number. It is the cosmic exchange rate between mass and energy. It tells us that the universe is built on a scale far beyond human intuition. A tiny amount of matter is not insignificant. It is a reservoir of immense energy, waiting quietly inside the structure of atoms. And this realization changes how we see the world. It tells us that the universe is not made of dull, lifeless matter. Instead, it is filled with energy in countless forms, some moving freely as light, others resting quietly as mass. The speed of light is the key that connects these forms. It is the bridge between the stillness of matter and the brilliance of energy. Through it, we see that even the smallest object contains a hidden power written into the very fabric of the cosmos. When we observe the world around us, it often seems as though things appear and vanish. A piece of wood burns and turns into ash. A candle melts away into a small pool of wax. A spark of light flashes, and then it is gone. To our eyes, it looks as though matter is constantly being created and destroyed. But the deeper we look into the laws of nature, the more we discover that this is only an illusion of our senses. The equation E equals mc² reveals a profound truth. Nothing in the universe truly disappears. It only changes its form. Before this idea took shape, scientists believed that mass and energy were separate things, each with its own rule of conservation. Mass was thought to be constant in any process, and energy was also conserved in its own way. But these were seen as two different accounting systems, like two ledgers kept in separate books. Einstein's equation unified them. It showed that mass and energy belong to the same ledger. They can transform into one another, but the total amount, the sum of mass and energy, remains constant. Imagine a gold coin that can magically transform into a bar of light. If the coin disappears, you might think the gold is gone, but in reality, it has simply changed into a different form. The value is still there, just expressed in a new way. Nature works in a similar fashion. Nothing is lost. Nothing is created from nothing. Everything is part of a grand balance. To see this more clearly, let us consider a nuclear reaction. Inside the core of the sun, hydrogen atoms are constantly colliding and fusing together to form helium. When scientists carefully measure the mass of the hydrogen atoms before the reaction and the mass of the helium afterward, they notice something strange. The helium weighs slightly less than the original hydrogen. At first glance, it appears that some mass has vanished, but according to E equals mc², this missing mass has not disappeared at all. It has simply transformed into energy, specifically the light and heat that stream outward from the sun. That sunlight travels across the vast emptiness of space, reaches the earth, and warms your skin. On a bright day, it feeds the plants, drives the winds, and powers the cycles of life. All of it comes from the tiny amount of mass that was converted into energy deep inside the sun's heart. So when the mass seems to vanish, it has not been destroyed, it has only changed its costume. This principle applies not only to the stars, but to the smallest particles as well. In high-energy physics experiments, scientists sometimes observe particles and their antiparticles colliding. When they meet, they annihilate each other. Both particles disappear in a flash of light. At first, this seems like true destruction. Matter and antimatter simply vanish. But if you measure the energy of the light produced, you will find that it is exactly equal to the total mass of the two particles, multiplied by c to the mass has not been destroyed. It has simply been converted into energy, perfectly following the equation. The universe, it seems, keeps very careful accounts. You might think of it like a great cosmic bank. You can withdraw your wealth in the form of coins, or you can store it as numbers in a digital account. The form changes, but the total value remains the same. The universe does not allow you to cheat this system. It keeps perfect balance. This idea also deepens our philosophical understanding of nature. It suggests that the universe is not a place where things are lost forever. Instead, it is a place of transformation. Every object, every particle, every ray of light is part of a continuous flow of energy. The wood in a burning fire does not vanish. Its mass becomes heat, light, smoke, and ash. The food you eat does not disappear. It becomes movement, warmth, and the very cells of your body, even the stars. When they explode, do not simply cease to exist. Their mass is scattered across space as energy and new elements, which later form new stars, planets, and perhaps even life. In this way, the universe is more like a river than a collection of objects. The water is always moving, always changing shape, but the river itself continues to exist. The equation E equals mc² tells us that the fundamental substance of this river is energy. Mass is simply one of its many forms. When mass seems to disappear, it is only the river changing its course. There is something deeply comforting in this idea. It means that the universe is governed by balance and continuity. Nothing is truly lost. It is only transformed. In the end, the equation does not just describe a physical law, It reveals a philosophical truth. The universe is not a place of disappearance but of transformation. Everything that exists is part of an endless cycle where mass becomes energy and energy may one day become mass again, and in this eternal dance, nothing is ever truly gone. If one wishes to see the equation E equals mc² not as a line of symbols, but as a living truth, one must look upward to the stars and downward into the heart of the atom. There, in both the vastness of the cosmos and the smallest corners of matter, this equation reveals its full power. It is not merely a theoretical insight, it is the engine behind the light of the sun, the force within nuclear reactors, and tragically, the destructive energy of atomic weapons. Before the discovery of mass energy equivalence, the source of the sun's energy was a deep mystery. For centuries, scientists wondered how the sun could burn so brightly for so long. If it were made of coal, it would have burned out in a few thousand years. If it were fueled by chemical reactions, it could not possibly have sustained its brilliance for the millions or billions of years required by geology and biology. The sun seemed to be violating the limits of known physics, but the equation equals 2 offered a new answer. It suggested that the sun was not powered by ordinary chemical reactions, but by the conversion of mass into energy. Deep within the sun's core, the temperature and pressure are so immense that hydrogen atoms are forced together. Under these extreme conditions, they fuse into helium. This process is known as nuclear fusion. When scientists carefully measure the masses involved, they discover something remarkable. The helium produced weighs slightly less than the original hydrogen. A small amount of mass is missing. Where did it go? According to the equation, that lost mass has been converted into energy. That energy emerges as the sunlight and heat that pour out of the sun every second. It travels across space and reaches Earth, lighting our skies, warming our oceans, and sustaining all known life. Every ray of sunlight is a direct demonstration of E equals mc² in action. The same principle can be harnessed here on Earth. In nuclear power plants, scientists use a different process called nuclear fission. Instead of fusing small atoms together, they split large atoms apart, usually uranium or plutonium. When a heavy atom splits, the pieces that result weigh slightly less than the original atom. Again, a tiny portion of mass disappears, and once again that missing mass becomes energy, just as the equation predicts. This energy appears as heat, which is used to produce steam, turn turbines, and generate electricity. In this way, a nuclear power plant converts the hidden energy of mass into the electricity that lights homes, powers machines, and supports modern civilization. What makes nuclear reactions so powerful is the factor C2 in the equation. Because this number is so enormous, even a small loss of mass produces an immense amount of energy. A small amount of nuclear fuel can generate as much energy as vast quantities of coal or oil. In this sense, nuclear power is simply the practical application of Einstein's insight. It is the equation made real in steel, concrete, and spinning turbines. But the same principle that powers the stars and lights our cities can also be turned toward destruction. During the Second World War, scientists realized that if a nuclear reaction could be made to occur rapidly and uncontrollably, the energy released would be catastrophic. In an atomic bomb, a chain reaction causes a large number of atoms to split in a fraction of a second. The tiny amount of mass lost in this process is converted into an enormous burst of energy. The result is a devastating explosion, far more powerful than any chemical weapon. This was one of the most painful consequences of the equation. A discovery born from curiosity and a desire to understand the universe also revealed a terrible potential. Yet it is important to remember that the equation itself is neutral. It is a statement about the nature of reality, not a blueprint for destruction. The same principle that fuels bombs also fuels the sun. It can power cities, drive spacecraft, and perhaps one day provide clean, abundant energy through controlled fusion. The equation does not choose how it is used. That responsibility lies with humanity. In the grand scale of the cosmos, the transformation of mass into energy is a constant, gentle process. Stars quietly convert mass into light over billions of years. Galaxies glow because of it. The warmth on your skin from the morning sun is the direct result of hydrogen atoms losing a tiny fraction of their mass in the sun's core. You are quite literally living on the energy of disappearing mass. So when we say that E equals mc² is the foundation of nuclear power and the stars, we are saying that it is the rule that explains both the light of the heavens and the energy locked inside matter. It is the same law at work in the quiet glow of a nuclear reactor and in the blazing heart of a distant star. It reminds us that the universe is built on transformation. Mass becomes energy, energy becomes light, and that light travels across space to give life to a small blue planet. In that sense, the equation is not just a scientific statement. It is the hidden script behind the brightness of the stars and the power within the atom, a single, elegant truth that connects the smallest particles to the grandest fires of the cosmos. There are moments in the history of science when an equation does more than solve a problem. It changes the way we see the world. It alters not only our calculations, but our imagination. The equation, E equals mc² is one of those rare insights. It did not simply add a new fact to physics. It reshaped our understanding of reality itself. Before this equation, the universe was thought to be built from two fundamentally different ingredients, matter and energy. Matter was considered the solid, permanent substance of the world, the stuff that objects were made of. Energy, on the other hand, was seen as something abstract, something that caused motion, heat, or light, but was not itself a physical substance. In the classical view, a stone was matter and a beam of sunlight was energy. They were treated as different categories, almost like two separate languages spoken by nature, but the equation, E equals mc² revealed that this distinction was not as deep as we once believed. It showed that matter and energy are not separate substances at all, they are two expressions of the same underlying reality. Mass is simply energy that has taken on a stable, visible form. Energy is mass that has been released from its structure. They are not enemies or opposites. They are transformations of one another. This realization is similar to discovering that ice and water are not fundamentally different substances. To the eye, ice is solid and rigid, while water is fluid and flowing. But at the molecular level, they are the same thing, just arranged differently. Ice is water whose motion has slowed down and become structured. Water is ice that has melted into a freer form. In the same way, mass is energy that has frozen into particles. Energy is mass that has melted back into motion, light, or radiation. This idea changes how we think about the objects around us. The chair you sit on, the air you breathe, the planet beneath your feet, none of these are simply collections of solid matter. They are arrangements of energy. The entire universe becomes a vast, dynamic field of energy, constantly shifting forms. Instead of a world made of separate objects, we begin to see a world made of processes and transformations. This new perspective also connects deeply with the theory of relativity. In that theory, space and time are no longer separate. They form a single fabric called spacetime. Events that appear different to one observer may look different to another, depending on their motion. In the same spirit, mass and energy are no longer separate. They form a single entity, often called mass energy. What appears as mass in one situation may appear as energy in another. The distinction depends on how the system is observed and how it changes. This idea gives the universe a kind of unity and simplicity. Instead of many unrelated ingredients, there is one fundamental essence, energy taking on different forms. Philosophically, this is a profound shift. It suggests that the universe is not a collection of fixed, permanent things. Instead, it is a continuous flow. Everything is part of an ongoing transformation. Matter becomes energy, energy becomes matter, and the cycle continues. The stars convert mass into light, that light travels through space and is absorbed by plants. The plants turn that energy into chemical bonds. Animals eat the plants and transform that energy into movement and warmth. When living things die, their matter returns to the earth, eventually becoming part of new life. In this sense, the entire universe is like a great symphony of energy, constantly changing its melody but never losing its essence. This view also humbles us. It reminds us that what we think of as solid and permanent is, at a deeper level, dynamic and ever-changing. Even our own bodies are not fixed objects. The atoms within us are constantly being replaced. The energy that sustains us comes from sunlight, which in turn comes from nuclear reactions in the sun. We are quite literally part of the same energy that shines in the stars. There is also a certain beauty in this idea. It reveals a universe that is elegant and unified, where seemingly different things are connected by simple, profound laws. An equation as short as E equals mc² can describe the energy of a nuclear reaction, the light of the sun, and the fundamental nature of matter itself. Such simplicity hints at a deeper harmony in nature. For me, this was always the most exciting part of physics, not the formulas themselves, but the way they change our way of seeing. A good equation is like a window. Through it, we glimpse the hidden structure of reality, and through the window of E equals mc², we see a universe that is not made of separate pieces, but of a single flowing essence. Matter and energy are not rivals, they are partners in an endless dance. This is the new view of reality the equation offers, a cosmos where everything is connected, everything is transforming, and at the deepest level, everything is made of the same fundamental energy.